All of this is being supported by artificial dollars that the customer at the end of the day isn't really touching, either the business customer or Joe Schmo consumer.
Do you worry that you're using AI in an unrealistic way economically right now? In other words, that your usage, when things come home to roost in terms of the costs, will not be affordable?
Yes.
Yes.
Like it might be more efficient economically for me just to do something versus using AI to do something.
To just type that email. Hi, and welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop.
And I'm GeekWire co-founder John Cook.
We are coming to you from Seattle, where we get to report each day on what's happening around us in business, technology, and innovation. What happens here matters everywhere, and every week on this show, we talk about some of the most interesting and important stories and trends in the news. John, coming up this week, picnic runs out of dough. That was your...
I thought that was pretty clever.
The robot pizza company sells to a mystery buyer. Corporate America's AI bill is coming due, and inside the big companies, workers are burning real money gaming AI leaderboards, including right here up the street at Amazon. But first, John, we've got to talk about the boat, right? We've got to talk about the boat. Oh my gosh. Sometimes there are stories that just kind of define a week. And this week, that story was Mark Zuckerberg's super yacht launch pad. And there are also these stories that happen locally sometimes as well. This is a great example. You know, it was the treasure truck back in the day.
The treasure truck, or I'm thinking of the Space Needle craziness with Angry Birds when we thought they were going to launch an Angry Bird off the top of the Space Needle.
Yes, so, this was one of those stories.
It was. These are really fun stories to chase.
So it was a Tuesday evening that this happened? Tuesday evening, yeah. I get this call from John, and he says, did you see that email from Ed Lazowska, the University of Washington computer science professor emeritus?
I was already in my car, by the way, speeding down to the Ballard Locks because the email had a great story on it.
It was Mark Zuckerberg's boat, his super yacht, is headed through the Ballard Locks. So I live 2 blocks north of the locks in Ballard. Great location. And John, I got up. I sprinted, or as close as I get to sprinting these days, and I almost had a tragic accident running across Market Street. I tripped and I just caught myself. It was almost a disaster. I could have ended up very much in the ER versus
you had a closer commute to get there. I was probably about 10 minutes away, and I was speeding down the road to get there. And when I parked, I saw Ed Lazowska walking very speedily towards the locks, and I started running to catch up.
So we were not the only ones who had heard of this boat coming through the town.
And we really shouldn't call it a boat. It's really a mega yacht.
It's huge. It's 387 feet long. It's built by a Dutch shipbuilder, and people started spotting it out in, I guess it would be Schilschel Bay,
yeah,
Elliott
around Golden
Bay.
Gardens.
Is it all Elliott Bay, or is it, yeah, anyway, it was out there.
The channel that leads into the ship canal that leads to the Ballard Locks.
And then
that leads to Seattle.
That leads into Lake Union and ultimately into Lake Washington if you want to go that far. So this thing was a spectacle. I mean, there were people on either side of the large lock at the Ballard Locks. And I mean, John, the best way I can describe it is it's like a building on the water. It's like a relatively decent sized building that would normally be in the middle of the city, but floating on the water.
And bigger than a Washington State ferry, or at least some of them, I would surmise.
I think so,
It seemed bigger.
Yes. And what we didn't know at the time, but what we found out later, is that there's a companion boat called the Wingman, because apparently
so cool.
you can't fit all of the toys and the different types of boats that you want on the full yacht itself.
And I just looked up some of the Washington State ferries just to put this in perspective, because I think a lot of people understand what a Washington State ferry size is. They range from about 273 feet to 460 feet. So it is in the realm. There are some that are 382 feet. There are some that are exactly in this size. So this is one person's pleasure craft that is going through the locks that's about the size of a Washington State ferry.
And
a little more modern, I should say. Not rickety, rusty
goodness.
nuts and bolts. And
it is a luxury super yacht, and it's one of the biggest in the world. The people who you spoke with, some of the people who work at the locks, said they'd never seen a yacht that big come through. And we do not believe Mark Zuckerberg was on board. At least that doesn't seem to be the indication.
Do not think so.
We do not know why the yacht was here or is here.
Well, there's been some guesses that it's here for the World Cup, which makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
World Cup starts in Seattle in mid-June. There's a big game here, the USA versus Australia on June 19th. I'm guessing he's going to come up and spend a few days around that match.
With his friends, I assume, and they would fly into town and they would all spend time basically
partying on his yacht,
using it as a hotel of sorts. And so it ended up mooring, I guess is the technical term, right on the west side of Lake Union, just, maybe a 5-10 minute walk from Meta's Seattle Engineering Center. And one of the reasons that this was so interesting, apart from the spectacle of this giant boat coming through that belongs to one of the world's richest people, was literally that morning, Meta had disclosed the number of people impacted by its recent layoffs in Seattle. So they made 8,000 layoffs globally. It's about 1,400 they disclosed in Seattle.
Right. They had about 7,000 people in Seattle. So a sizable workforce here in the greater Seattle area, we should say. So this is a substantial layoff. So the two words I was hearing from most people when I explained this story, or when they read the story on GeekWire, or they saw the video or the photos, two words: tone deaf.
Yes.
Tone deaf. And you got to think that Meta or Mark Zuckerberg have a sophisticated enough public relations mechanism to know that they were in the news that day for laying off 1,400 people. And maybe it's not the best look to be driving your super yacht right through the middle of the city. Those that aren't in Seattle, the Ballard Locks are one of the biggest tourist attractions in Seattle. I mean, I'm looking at the ship canal that this boat went through. It's on, the GeekWire offices are on the ship canal. It goes into one of the main parts of the city. It's impossible not to notice this thing.
I stopped by the place where it's moored just yesterday afternoon on my way home, and it couldn't be in a more public place. It's on a trail that hundreds, if not thousands of people go through on their commute. And
on their bicycle commute.
On their bicycle
or walking,
commute, or they're walking. And basically there's an overlook right there looking out at Launchpad.
It is. I mean, it's tone deaf. It really is.
I think it's more of an indication of the separation of the private life from the corporate life. I have a hunch that this crew probably didn't have the layoffs on its radar, and Zuckerberg's got a lot of things going on, and he probably just said, hey, I'm going to the World Cup, get the boat up there. And I think it was just coincidence and bad timing. Obviously, they didn't do it on purpose. At least I hope not. That would be,
I hope not.
That'd be like something out of The Great Gatsby or something in terms of, and that's actually what I was thinking. It felt like a modern day Great Gatsby moment.
You couldn't sit there and watch this giant vessel in the ship canal and just ponder, like, one person owns this.
Yes.
About $300 million. It makes you really ponder the whole wealth disparity issue. It's pointing to one of the most important issues in our society today, and it's the rich getting much richer and the bottom half of society struggling. And that was very obvious. And we heard it from some of the hecklers that were yelling things, not really at anybody. And that was also what was kind of interesting to me. They were basically yelling at a boat, right? And I guess maybe the crew that was there, the crew doesn't really have anything to do with it. I mean, but people were just yelling at a giant $300 million boat because they were angry.
It was pretty odd. It was a spectacle. And I just kept sitting there just marveling at the size of the thing. I could not get over the size. I know that I've seen some commercial shipping vessels, because I go to the locks all the time, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week. So I've seen commercial shipping vessels that are of that scale.
Yeah, and we've seen them come down the ship canal. There are fishing vessels, and there are large barges too. I actually asked the locks operator if they have vessels that come through there that are longer? And he said, sure. I mean, when they have, these barges that have carrying gravel or what have you that come through, they're much larger, but this was not that.
So I mentioned Ed Lazowska earlier. Of course, Ed had to do the calculation on the fuel.
Oh, that was great. Yeah, we didn't include that in the story, but it was very interesting.
He looked it up and found out that Launchpad has a fuel capacity of 111,929 US gallons, I guess. At the Lake Union price of $7.49 per gallon for marine diesel, it would cost $850,000 to fill her up. I haven't fact checked all this, but and that's not even counting tax. $850,000 to fill it up. Just have that in mind the next time you pull up at the gas station and think that you're paying too much. I mean, jeez.
Yeah, it was tone deaf. I mean, that's just the word. Those are the words that come to mind. And maybe it was an accident. And if they had known, they certainly wouldn't have sailed their massive craft into the middle of the city. But it's here. It's going to be here, I'm guessing, through the World Cup. And if you want to go take a look at it, it's on the west part of Lake Union.
Yep, you can get there. Just
You'll see it.
Drive up West Lake.
Yeah, it's hard not to miss.
All right, I don't have anything more to say about that.
Me either.
But it was a very well-read story and a series of stories.
Well, I guess the only other thing is these are the moments, and we alluded to this at the beginning of the show, that we really get excited that you can chase down some weird story that's happening in the city, and that gets us fired up.
Yeah, it was a fun moment journalistically and a somewhat ironic moment in terms of the juxtaposition.
Well, the other top story before the mega yacht arrived, I think the other top story on the site was the layoffs at Meta.
Yes.
So the mega yacht arriving knocked...
Maybe that was the plan.
That was the plan. Knocked the layoff story to the number 2 spot.
That's right.
They just on the GeekWire top stories of the week.
Claim the news cycle for their own, I guess.
Yes.
All right. Okay, we will be right back with pizza making robots. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop and John Cook. First off, shout out to our colleague Kurt Schlosser on this one. Kurt tracked this story down, got this scoop. John, you might have provided the inspiration for the headline on the story about Picnic. Kind of a misnamed company, frankly, but they made machines, robotic machines, effectively. They weren't like physical humanoid robots, but robotic machines that made pizza at a very high rate, at a very high volume, and they went into commercial locations, kitchens, stadiums. And this was a very promising Seattle startup for a number of years, and they just imploded. And Kurt tracked this down. They went into an alternative to bankruptcy and ended up having their assets acquired, and we were able to break the news on GeekWire. Did this surprise you that this company didn't make it?
Not so much. It actually had a bit of an odd origin story. There was another founder who was involved. They had multiple CEOs over the course of its history, which is never really a great sign. So they never quite had the track record going. And then I think the other point of this story is that hardware is hard to do. I mean, when you're talking about building robotic systems and then putting them into retail environments, that is a hard proposition. So I think it is a warning to anyone who is going into that hardware space, hardware robotic space. It's just a challenging business.
Its signature product was the Picnic Pizza Station. It could help one person, a single employee, produce up to 100 customized 12-inch pizzas per hour, basically by automating the topping process. It was pitched at high-volume food service operations that might have high labor costs and a lot of turnover. So you can see the appeal of this. It's not necessarily gourmet, although there was one very avid customer of it, Moto Pizza, which was very
Great
much
pizza, by the way. Have you ever had it?
No, I never have.
It's excellent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really good.
Is it a one place or is it a chain?
I think they have a couple locations, but it's really good.
And Kurt talked to the owner of that as well, Lee Kindle. He is so disappointed by them going away that he's basically standing up his own startup to try and do it one better or replicate the whole idea. So there's obviously some promise here when you see a customer that's that enthusiastic about it.
But when you see this baton that's passed from a founder to a CEO to another CEO to another CEO in the course of 5, 6, 7 years, that's usually not a good sign. Speaking about Lee Kindle of Moto Pizza, he actually has about $250,000 worth of equipment left over. He calls it his robot aquarium. And so, but he is, as you said, I think that's out of the ashes of one idea comes another. And obviously he's a big enough believer that he is moving forward and trying to implement this in his restaurants.
Are you reluctant to eat food that's been created through more of an automated process? Does your food?
No, I don't care.
You don't care?
I mean, it seems like it would be it'd be safer than
human hands
spreading all over the dough.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess there's something that's more of an artisan appeal to food, and somebody who's very good at standing at the stove and working their magic might be more appealing to me than knowing that it came out of a cold, heartless machine.
Okay, yeah, you can make that argument. I think depends on the restaurant setting, and yes. I think that is a point here. Is this type of equipment I think is better suited for a faster serve environment than
stadiums.
Yes, stadiums is a great example. Or I mean, a luxury high-end restaurant. No, I don't think I need a robot creating my meals for me.
All right, so we'll link to that story from the show notes. As you said, just another interesting example. And we've talked about this several times this year of hardware companies imploding and really struggling to get traction long term. It's a very difficult business.
But on the flip side of that, we've also talked on the show that some of these companies that are at the intersection of AI, hardware, robotics are also some of the most interesting startup companies that we're covering at GeekWire. So examples like Overland AI,
right,
or Carbon Robotics. I mean, these are heavily funded, very interesting companies. One in the defense sector with autonomous vehicles. That's Overland AI. Carbon Robotics in the ag tech space with products called the Laser Weeder and the Auto Tractor. And so it's fascinating to watch because these are actual things you can go and see and touch and see how they're trying to change industries.
Definitely. Okay, next story, John. You flagged this one. This was out of the Wall Street Journal. Use of artificial intelligence by big companies is exploding, and the soaring cost has some of them pumping the brakes in a way that could complicate AI's triumphal march across the economy. That was the Wall Street Journal lead. That's a very WSJ lead, isn't it?
I have some thoughts on this because everyone's so concerned, and we need to bring an economist in here. Neither one of us are economists. But one of my theories is we're in the era of free AI, right? I mean, basically these tools do not cost that much. But look at the expenditures that these companies are putting forth right now to support this. Well, at some point, and this is the comparison to a company like Uber. Remember when Uber was so cheap?
Yeah.
I mean, it was so subsidized by all the venture capital dollars flowing into it. And it made it really easy to hop in an Uber or Lyft and drive one around Seattle. Now, I don't really use Uber or Lyft anymore. It's so expensive because they're trying to become profitable business models. And so there's a part of me that thinks the acceleration we're seeing with AI will slow down as soon as these companies decide that, okay, the era of free AI is over and we got to start monetizing. And once they try to start monetizing it, people are going to say, maybe I'm not going to use that as much. So I think there might be a natural slowdown that happens just based on what we saw with Uber as one example.
And here you have in this Wall Street Journal story the dichotomy. On the one hand, companies are encouraging employees, or they have been at least encouraging employees, to use AI to try and figure out ways to gain efficiencies. But then once the bills come in, they're realizing, whoa, this is not working.
Well, in the case of Amazon, the story this week from the Financial Times was that there was an employee-created leaderboard of who was using the most AI, most tokens, really. But the idea was, hey, who's doing the most creative, interesting things with AI? And essentially, they went ahead and they shut down the leaderboard this week, reportedly, because people were using it for frivolous things in terms of turning the AI loose on projects that had nothing to do with the company or its products. And they were just trying to make it look like they were very AI forward and were trying to rise up the leaderboard.
So this was Kiro Rank. It was an unofficial leaderboard that was tracking usage of Amazon's Kiro AI tool, not Cairo. It's spelled Kiro, but they pronounce it Kiro, like hero. Anyway, it ranked workers according to their AI activity. But what happened was managers discovered that the employees were creating AI agents to carry out unnecessary tasks just for the purpose of boosting their scores. I mean,
Hey,
like
well,
something out of
if you're going to
Silicon
gamify
Valley.
something for developers and engineers, they're going to try to hack the system and get on top of the leaderboard. I mean, this is just natural behavior.
The Financial Times quoted an Amazon senior VP saying that the leaderboard had been built with, quote, good intentions, but the compute costs it generated were too high. So there you have it.
To the point that these compute costs are so high that companies are really starting to rein things in, which goes back to my original point, which was once they start to rein the costs in, they're also going to try to start monetizing their big time investments they're putting into this. And as soon as that happens, the end user is going to somebody's going to have to pay for AI at the end of the day. Right now, companies are largely footing the bill.
When you say companies, do you mean the corporate customers of the big AI labs and the cloud giants?
I mean, the Microsofts and the Amazons and the Googles and the Metas of the world that all are building out massive data centers right now to power AI. And the venture-backed Anthropics and OpenAIs of the world. All of this is being supported by artificial dollars that the customer at the end of the day isn't really touching, either the business customer or Joe Schmo consumer.
Do you worry that you're using AI in an unrealistic way economically right now? In other words, that your usage, when things come home to roost in terms of the costs, will not be affordable?
Yes, I think that's what happened with Uber, and I guess that's what my point is that at that point behaviors will probably start to change, and we'll see the true economics of the AI revolution.
You just need to be able to justify the use of AI at a much higher expense by realizing much larger returns from the productivity gains that you see. It becomes kind of like an equation, and eventually the cost side of the equation is going to get higher, and it's going to be harder to
justify that.
Yes.
Like it might be more efficient economically for me just to do something versus using AI to do something.
To just type that email. All right. Okay. Well, hey, I forgot to mention at the very beginning, we do have a good GeekWire trivia challenge, and it actually harkens back to the first topic in the first segment, Mark Zuckerberg's yacht. So are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll be right back with that.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
This is GeekWire's Trivia Challenge.
Wouldn't you prefer a good game of chess?
All right, John, it is that time, GeekWire Trivia Challenge. Of course, we talked in the first segment about Mark Zuckerberg's 387-foot super yacht launch pad cruising through Seattle this week. And it got me to thinking about other billionaires with their yachts. And of course, there's one billionaire that we've covered over the years, a late billionaire, the late Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen. And he had, now remember, Mark Zuckerberg's yacht was 387 feet. This is not the trivia, but Paul Allen's boat by the name of...
Odyssey?
Nope.
Am I close?
Close. It's an O. It's an O.
Odyssey. I thought it was Odyssey. Odysseus?
It's Octopus.
Octopus. Yeah.
Yes, Paul Allen's boat was
That's right.
414 feet by comparison.
Really?
414
Okay.
feet. And I looked it up. So Mark Zuckerberg's boat, based on the width, had just enough space to get through the locks safely. If it had been, maybe 20 feet wider, it would have really started to cause some concern based on some of the research I did.
And that was my feeling just seeing it. The length didn't matter as much. As we said, they have these double barges that go through the locks that are much, much longer. It was the width in the lock that was, there wasn't a ton of room. They did not allow any other boats in that large lock.
No.
At the time that the launch pad was in there.
So my research indicates that the Octopus would not have been able to make it
because it was
through the
too
belt.
wide.
It was too wide.
Yep.
Too wide to get through. Okay, here is my question though. The late Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen's 414-foot Octopus came with 2 submarines. And in 2015, Allen and his team used one of them, one of those subs, to find what at the bottom of the ocean? A, the German battleship Bismarck. This was the ship that was sunk by the Royal Navy in 1941 in the North Atlantic. B, the USS Lexington, an American aircraft carrier that was sunk in 1942 in the Coral Sea. That's off the northeast coast of Australia. C, the Japanese battleship Musashi, one of the largest ever built, sunk by U.S. forces in 1944 in the sea off the central Philippines. D, Ernest Shackleton's ship Endurance, crushed by Antarctic ice in 1915. Or E, a 17th century Spanish galleon that went down loaded with New World gold in the Caribbean. So we've got A, the Bismarck, B, the USS Lexington, C, the Japanese battleship Musashi, D, Shackleton's ship Endurance, or E, 17th century Spanish galleon.
Okay. I think you need fewer choices, first off. Secondly, I think I remember this, and I think I have the answer. Yeah. I think it's A, the Bismarck.
Okay.
Am I right?
No, it was not.
Oh my gosh, I've been stinking on trivia lately. Really?
It was C, the Japanese battleship Musashi.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
Dang.
they used the Octopus and its remotely operated submersible to locate the ship, one of the two largest battleships ever built, more than 3,000 feet down in the sea off the central Philippines. So there you have it.
All right. So Microsoft co-founder
Okay,
Paul
yes,
Allen.
yes, that's
he
right.
did not find.
He did not
find the Bismarck itself, but his research team successfully located the wreck of its most famous victim, MHS Hood.
Yes.
Using a super yacht Octopus, Allen's team recovered the Hood's bell in 2015 to serve as a memorial.
Yes.
This is what I'm remembering.
Yes.
It was actually the HMS Hood's bell he found.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
So it was a little tricky.
That was a little tricky. That was a little
too much of a.
Well, you threw me for a loop because I do remember the bell being discovered of that vessel, and I remember it being associated with the Bismarck.
Yes, and there was another one in there that was also meant to be tricky for people who know this, because Allen actually did find the USS Lexington. It was located in March 2018 by his other vessel. It wasn't the Octopus. It was his other boat, the research ship, the RV Petrel, not the Octopus.
Okay. Remind me again, because I'm going to throw some trivia back at you now. Okay. Remind me again on the size of the Octopus, Paul Allen's one. I think he sold it, right? One time
it was
large.
Yeah, they sold it.
Yeah.
But 414 feet long.
Okay. Jeff Bezos's new super yacht is bigger or smaller than Paul Allen's Octopus. This is the boat that there was a recent report about this yacht as well, that it's actually too big and he wants to sell it. And this was
bigger. Is it bigger?
It is 417 feet.
It's bigger than both Zuck's boat and
remember
Paul
this
Allen's
was the boat
boat?
when they built it, I think in the Netherlands or wherever they had the big controversy that they had to, I don't know if it ever came to pass, but they were going to have to tear down a bridge and then rebuild it in order to get the boat out of the marina it was being constructed in. So
this is the one with the facsimile of his wife on the bow.
Yes, correct. And another trivia question. This is going very deep in the archives. It actually shares its name with a former Seattle area startup that was run by Kristen Hamilton.
Koru.
That's right.
That's the name of his boat?
Yes.
I wouldn't have known the name of the boat, but I knew the name of Kristen Hamilton's startup.
There you go. There's the connection point. I don't think he named it after the. Yeah, we went in the weeds here. I know.
Okay.
I don't think he named it after the startup. He named it Koru for other reasons.
Next time.
Well, a big nautical theme this week.
Yes. All right. Next time, a simpler trivia challenge, I promise. All right. Big week, big boat. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Big times. I don't know.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast. Until then, I'm Todd Bishop.
And I'm John Cook.
Thanks for listening to the GeekWire podcast.